Guys, welcome back. I've got Coach Will Trujillo, and we also have Mitch Davis on with us today. And I'm really interested to talk about some of the training frivolity that I've heard Mitch and Will talking about. Um, let me open up this conversation by saying, what in the world is a Mitch-tathlon, and does every client need to experience it?
I think that every client should seek their own Mitch-tathlon.
Mm.
So the original, I guess, Mitch-tathlon 1, by Roman numeral I, was in a single day deadlift 3 times body weight and run a marathon under 90 minutes.
Half marathon. Okay.
Half marathon. Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, we don't have an Olympian here.
What's the rest? What's the rest time between the deadlift and the run?
Well, for Mitch, it was the time it took to drive to the race, and eat some oatmeal. So it was it was just something that he discussed. He can tell a story about how it came up, but yeah, the metrics of the day was wake up. The deadlift had to happen before the marathon, obviously, but the half marathon was just a public road race. So that has a determined start time that Mitch had to adhere to. You know, he wasn't anything special, so he had to be there kind of bright and early. So that was how the day shook out. But he can tell you a little bit more about chase it down.
One quick clarification: what did you weigh? So what was triple the body weight deadlift?
So I was, I think 165, 164, somewhere around there. So 500, 503, something like that was what we were aiming for.
Okay. How did this thing come about? Like what about this was so interesting to do?
So I coach a lot of high school sports. Probably the biggest one I coach is wrestling. And the biggest issue that my wrestlers sort of, they fall into the trap of, they're kind of cyclical in their approach to exercise. So during the off season, all they want to do is strength-based stuff. And then as we get into the season, all they want to do is worry about their conditioning, because that's what wrestling has always been. And so myself, along with the head coach, were like, you can do both. We might have to subtract from both, but at the same time, you can do both. So I turned to Will and I was a little bit pissed off. Like, these kids aren't listening to me. So how can I go to the absolute two extremes and at least attempt it and not die while doing it, purely just out of spite and to prove a point? And so that's sort of how this first Mitch-tathlon sort of took shape.
So I see the flag behind you. Were you in the Marine Corps as well, or?
Yeah, I was. Yep.
Okay. So have you always been one of those guys that likes taking things to the extreme, or where did this sort of come about?
Yeah, I don't know about the extreme. The Marine Corps definitely helped. I think more so just in kind of laughing at your own suffering, because you can't do anything else. If you're in a miserable situation and you're making yourself more miserable, that miserable situation isn't going anywhere. So I think a lot of it just learning to laugh with the guys next to you, and realizing, you're the one who put yourself in this situation. So I think that definitely helped with a lot of my longer training days. And just, a lot of my notes on True Coach to Will were pretty salty towards the end. Just like, why did I choose to do this? I'm so stupid.
I also have to ask as well, when and where did your majestic mustache form?
That I don't know. I just, I sort of started growing it as a joke one day, and then I just kind of took off from there. So, yeah, I just got to keep going with it now. It's my trademark.
Okay, so let me ask you, you might hear some dogs in the background, for which I apologize, but because you do a lot of strength training with kids, so you know what you're doing, and you're also wanting to progress yourself. So when you started working with Will, what was the purpose of that? Like, what did you want to get from it? Was it learning as much as it was fitness? Was it more fitness? Like, why did you start this process?
Oh man, this is a great story. So joined the Marine Corps late. I was a bit older. And during boot camp, I had fractured my foot. And of course, as you know, every hard ass wants to do, you don't tell anyone because then you're going to get cycled back. So I suffered through it for 8 weeks, got my 10-day leave before infantry school, went to the doctor, sure enough, fractured foot. And his advice was, you know, don't do anything for a while. And I said, I've got 3 days until I'm back on it. So went to infantry school. I was a mortarman, so foot's banged up. You're on your knees all day. I'm 26, 27, and it got to the point where I couldn't even kneel down. I was so banged up. I went in as a reservist, so once I was out, I would have about a month to kind of rest up, and then being the new guy, it didn't matter what your degrees were, how old you were, what your life experience was. If you're the new guy, you're the new guy. So you're carrying all the heavy shit. You're doing all the fire watch. And it got to the point where we were on a hike, and I remember sitting down when we got done, and I couldn't get back up. My back was blown out. My legs were killing me. So started going to the doctors, started dealing with the corpsman, and here I was. I had a couple master's degrees. I had all this experience, and I'm stuck in this position of no one cared what I had to say. It was all protocol. So I said, it was one doctor to the next, and essentially every single doctor I spoke to, as great as they were, they said, hey, your days of heavy lifting are probably done. Your days of your long runs are probably done. You're just getting old. You've banged yourself up over sport and the Marine Corps. So I started looking around for own education for myself, and I came across OPEC CCP, and I started learning that. And I like to nerd out, and I like kind of the books and the taking the tests and figuring out what you're doing. But at the same time, I sort of had this light bulb go off, like, what if, like, I'm missing a huge chunk here? Like, why don't you hire yourself a coach? So called up, and back when Big Dogs was still OPEX, I got signed up September, I think, of 2017. And I was actually with JT for about a month. And I remember when JT left, he said, hey, I got a guy in mind for you. We'll kind of have a little three-way call here. And he told me, you know, Will's name. So I looked Will up on Instagram, and the first photo I saw was this huge Fu Manchu. And now this is back. I just got medically discharged from the Marine Corps. I'm still like, you know, everything is proper. And I'm like, I'm either going to fucking hate this guy or we're going to be absolute bros. And here we are almost 3 years later, took a visit out there, you know, best decision I've ever made. I'm pain-free, you know, to go from doctors saying you're never going to lift to creating some stupid event of just nothing but suffering, pulling 3 times my own body weight. I'm by no means this phenomenal athlete. Like, holy shit. Like, if that's not a good advertisement for what the coaches at Big Dogs do, I don't think anything is, because, you know, I'm blown away every day. Every block of programming. It's awesome.
Let me ask you this then, and actually let me ask Will this. What were some of the biggest pieces that you had to overcome? So Will, what were you working with? What did you have to overcome? And, you know, take me broadly through what that process looked like to get Mitch back to life.
Well, I'll start by saying we weren't working with much. No, no, it's definitely like, you know, when we look at like the profile and injury pattern, it was just definitely a guy who had spent more time in the endurance realm. So if we look at him, like a lot of the structural patterns, like kind of stiff, immobile upper back, upper pecs, stiff, immobile hips, you know, those lead to a certain set of gifts and like a certain set of risks. So like in high school, he was this like really fast 800-meter runner and kind of like fell into those patterns and strengthened them because that, you know, fed into success. But that was, you know, with a give and take. So when we look at this, you know, his goal of just being pain-free, it was like, all right, man, we're going to kind of like spend some time exploring the rocks that like you haven't explored, you know, absolute strength, doing a lot of stuff like time under tension waves, you know, kind of slowing down and building some absolute strength base. And, you know, going from, and then actually explain to him like sustainable aerobic stuff. So even though he could run, like he had run a marathon before, he had done the running needed to be a Marine Corps infantryman, the running needed to be like a high level 800-meter runner. It was pretty unsustainable. It was just keep up with the crowd, or the 800-meter, like he'll tell you sprint until he died, like wasn't really much thought to it. So understanding like a bunch of different modalities, whether it's rowing, skiing, biking, doing them consistently and aerobically to like give that base support kind of allowed his system to heal. From a biomechanical structural standpoint, we picked certain lifts like single leg pieces, single arm pressing pieces that were going to open him up and free him from a biomechanics standpoint. And then from there, like once we got to the point where he could like do those things, like the windows just kind of opened more and more and more. Like, there's not much that, if anything, that I could think that we won't tackle within his training. He's doing the Olympic lifts. He's done enough strict pulling and pushing that we can do dynamic gymnastics and practice it. He can do mixed modal work sustainably in different, iterations. There's nothing that we don't throw at him at this point. And it's not that anyone has to do those things to be super fit. It's just that's part of his learning, and that's something that he enjoys and wants to explore. But the cool thing is, like, we did that base work for, a year or two minimum that allowed him like the keys to the kingdom. So now if there's something he wants to do it, we can. And I think the other important thing to understand about Mitch is that when he comes with these batshit ideas or just wanting to like do different things, he understands that it's not just, we don't go from like an absolute strength program and like easy aerobics to fucking Murph or to the Mitch-tathlon. I was like, hey, this Mitch-tathlon is 6 months out. That's perfect because we need that. And it was a distinct training program, and he understands the time and dedication to the small steps needed. So I think that's the big thing, that if I could take that and explain to any other client, that would be it. It's like, you can do anything you want. It's just going to take some time probably. We've got to build those, whether it's tissues, nervous system, motor planning, whatever skill, we've got to just kind of go through the process and do it. And Mitch not only just does it, but, I think he enjoys it. And that's why, why he's had so much success is the way he views how we do things.
So Mitch, when you think about kind of that same process, what were some of the things that you had to overcome in that? Like, were you immediately patient, thinking that you would have to spend a year doing absolute strength work, et cetera? Or, what did you kind of feel along the way that was good, bad, or indifferent?
I don't think there was ever a point, and I mean, this goes back to my days of running track. I've always been very much, if I have a good leader in front of me, not following them blindly, but just complete 100% trust. So when Will and I have our conference calls and we talk about the steps that are needed, to me, it's a no-brainer. Like, of course, you're not going to go from no road running at all to hitting a sub 90-minute half marathon. There's a process to it. So I think the biggest part is talking to Will takes, the knowledge that you learn at university. It takes the knowledge that you learn through things like CCP and these other certifications and books that you're reading, and it's in your face. And now you're the client. So now, we're all coaches, and you get kind of wrapped up in this coaching mindset. And all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like some people aren't going to be patient, but how am I responding to Will? How is he teaching me through this? There's definitely some blocks where I'm irritated. I definitely don't like running hill sprints and hill repeats in the middle of August out here in PA. It's brutal, but that's the name of the game. So, and then also understanding I am the one who put myself in the seat. No one's holding a gun to my head saying, hey, you've got to run this shit. So yeah, but overall, no real, like, what is Will doing to me? Like, this is going to suck, any of that.
What would you say that, as long as you can remember, you have responded well to chasing a goal or chasing an idea? Is that sort of what you enjoy doing in fitness, is chasing that goal? So is this Mitch-tathlon a goal to chase, or is it more of just an enjoyment for the learning experience, combo of both?
I would say there was definitely a distinctive switch. As soon as I started coaching, it became less about, I have to prove via whether it's that journey or whether it's that competition or whatever. And now it's just all about just the freedom to be abundantly healthy in any and all avenues. So, you know, you look at this Mitch-tathlon, as crazy it is, to me, that's just a continuum of just, you know, you have really healthy long distance runners and you have really healthy strength athletes, and you have a mix of everything in between. And I think I've just fallen in love with the ability to kind of do a little bit of everything. So a lot of this is just, you know, I want to be able to go outside and play catch with my son, you know, as he grows up. And I want to be able to go, and if I've got kids in the weight room who are confused about a movement, know I can go and do that movement well. So yeah, definitely a transition there as soon as I started coaching from the why behind, you know, what I'm doing in the garage or out on the road or whatever.
Will, what has Mitch done really well? Because I will certainly say that I don't hear a ton of people just say, if I've got somebody out in front of me, I'm just running right behind them. You know what I mean? In terms of coach to client, or, you know, coach to athlete. What are some of the traits that have helped make Mitch successful in all of this?
I think he understands what he needs, you know, not to the point where he can write his own program, like, don't fire me, Mitch. I think just he knows what he needs from, like you said, from a leadership standpoint, you know. I think as a coach, like, there's definitely a knowledge standpoint. So, like, he knows that he needs someone to structure a plan for him. So maybe it's a little bit less on his plate. There's a little bit of an understanding where we're going, but then those are kind of like knowledge steps. Like, we've definitely talked over a lot of stuff and like maybe how this applied to an athlete or things he's doing in the weight room. And it goes back and forth. Like, it's not like I'm the fucking Wizard of Oz, just, you know, teaching him everything. Like, he's definitely taught me some stuff about all the stuff he does with youth athletes, but, you know, he knows what he needs as far as he does need a little bit of why are we doing this? Like, what are the steps, etc. So he understands what he needs, and that's what makes it fulfilling. You know, I think other clients, that would be a good area of growth. Like, what do you need from a coaching relationship? Like, there are certain clients, like, maybe you have a finance background or you're an engineer, and like, you care less about the why. You just want, this is the goal. Tell me exactly what I need to do. So if you know that's what you need, take that. And anything in between. So if you know what you need from a coach and you can help us give that to you, then it makes the relationship so much better. Because, you know, like I said, if I have another client who's, you know, an engineer, could care less, he just loves the results, and I spend all this time talking about the why and not the how, it's just, you know, it's going to be a disconnect. So I'd say that's the biggest thing, is he understands, you know, what he needs, and like, he makes it clear about how I can deliver that.
For somebody, and actually, Mitch, I'm curious on your opinion too, since you are also coaching, but for somebody who hasn't necessarily thought about what they specifically need from a coach, how can they improve that level of awareness or connection?
Will, me? You want to start?
I think the first thing is just ask yourself if you're getting what you need already. You know, I mean, this is even for me, like, I've gone back and forth. Like, I've had one really good coach, and now I have a really shitty coach. I'm writing my own programming. And I think about that, you know, it's like, you know, I always have my clients, like, you know, what are your goals? Like, are you 100% meeting them? If not, you know, maybe you need to examine getting some assistance, whatever that is. And then I'd say is also look to other positive relationships in your life. You know, like, what do you look for in friendships? Like, what do you like, who's a boss you really liked working for, a coworker you really liked being around, you know, and just model whatever that positive relationship is within the coaching.
How about for you, Mitch?
Again, my cohort of the people I coach are, the bulk of them are 16 or 14 to 18 years old, high school students, athletes. But I've seen that the biggest indicator of, and, you know, huge quotes here, successful versus unsuccessful, is the kids who crave the autonomy and aren't afraid to ask the questions that will get them there. So I've got a lot of strong kids that will come in and just blindly do the program in front of them, but come end of season, they're nowhere to be found, or post-graduation, they're not continuing to do healthy things, versus it's amazing to see some of the kids that come in and you're like, oh my goodness, this kid's a train wreck. But he's asking those questions, and then those questions are turning into, you know, him or her sending a message out, you know, especially, you know, during a time like this. You know, I had a kid who went out and he just decided to learn to do a backflip because that was something he wanted to do. And things like that are awesome. The kids who graduate and will send me videos of a new PR or whatever, that don't have a coach anymore. I think that, to me, that's success. And that's what I look for in my one-on-one clients, the person who craves that autonomy.
Really, really well said. I appreciate that. Let me close with this question. What is the next Mitch-tathlon?
Will, you want to start?
Well, we have Murph. That's like a little bit, but the end of summer. This could really end up replacing the CrossFit Games.
Yeah,
the Mitch Garage Games. We could put a list of suggested equipment out. The initial thought is a three-day test of fitness, 2 events per day. We'll limit it that. We said we're gonna cap total volume. Just the kind of the old school ethos of mixed or CrossFit, whatever you want to call it. A little bit of unknowable within the known. So we're definitely going to keep it, you know, cyclical, Olympic lifting, structural lifting, some gymnastics, work capacity, you know, using traditional CrossFit means. But I think the big challenge for Mitch will just be volume within that aspect. We've done volume on the road and volume of simple stuff, but just the 3-day challenge. And we might have to put something out there for the people to follow along.
So is this something, Mitch, where you will not know the events until the weekend? Is that how this is going to play?
Yeah, we haven't gotten too in depth with how secret he's going to be, but at this point,
super secret.
You know, I think he'll give me a little bit. But I made the stupid mistake of getting all boastful and bragging and saying, "Hey, Will, you know, if you got a set, you should try to, you know, compete against me." And then I realized he's the guy who's programming it, so he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll just pick all movements that I can do and I can do, and boom, there you go, I win." So we'll see.
It's going to be 6 iterations of a 1-rep max snatch.
Oh, I love this, guys. You have to post this somehow. There's got to be some sort of lead up, and then during the competition, I promise you guys, you could probably put, you know, if you had Will, because I'm going to assume you'll compete in this. If you had 8 other folks, so if you had heats of 10, like just one heat of 10 to go through these 6 events, that'd be great to watch.
We'll have to work on my technological back end. That's that's my limiting factor.
Awesome. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on. I love the perspectives on this. I also really appreciate taking the time to walk through kind of, you know, some of those key concepts that any athlete can think about. I love the autonomy piece too. I think that's so important and probably under talked about. So thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. And we'll see everybody next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
See you, buddy.